You know, Aotearoa is more than just a blimmin' tax haven bolt hole for mega corporates and the uber rich. We are not a Māori organisation, the Green Party. We are a tiriti party. What that has meant is we have had to do honest work about how to build up our presence in Māori communities.
Would you consider a coalition or a partnership with New Zealand First?
You know what, Mihi?
E te tuakana marama nau mai kia mata ko rō te wā, kei te pēwhia koe.
Kei te pai, haere tonu te mahi, nōku te whiwhi te noho ki te whakawhitiwhiti kōrero kia koe e hoa.
It's been a challenging time for wāhine Māori in leadership positions, health, education, media, policing. How have you found it personally?
Really challenging, particularly because of the effort and the energy that our people, especially our wahine Māori, have had to put into fighting this racist government, fighting this anti-taiao government, fighting this anti-tiriti government. Proud too, of our people, and again our wahine Māori who are at the coalface, who are at the front lines of all of the protection mahi that we are doing for people and for papatua anuku.
When you look out across Aotearoa, what concerns you and what gives you hope?
What concerns me is that people will feel hopeless, and that is intentional by this government. It is intentional by people who seek to protect the system that keeps them wealthy and powerful. We cannot give in to that feeling of hopelessness. It is designed to put people off engaging. It is designed to trick people into thinking that we can't do better. That part scares me. But the hope is I am seeing a birth of new energy for people who are saying, actually, we can do better. Certainly with the Greens, we're experiencing that incredible support right now where people can believe that we can change things to do far better, to be an Aotearoa that upholds te tiriti, the taiao and tamariki. So that gives me hope.
We're going to talk about your tax policy, but first the National Party has announced a compulsory KiwiSaver scheme, and they're looking for cross-party support. Is this something that the Greens might support?
Certainly open to it. My youngest tamariki are benefactors of when we used to have $1,000 contribution actually by the government to start them off as babies. You know, that thing doesn't exist anymore, and I would like to see more support for people to be able to save for lifelong. So we'd be open to having a look at it.
So 6% compulsory savings from the individual and then another 6% from employers. Is it equitable, do you think, this scheme for all New Zealanders?
It risks not being equitable for people who are unemployed. That's why the contribution for all babies, no matter the status of their parents, is a far better idea. I'd like to see something like that be returned.
Okay, let's talk about your tax policy. Heading into the election, it's called A Tax System for All of Us, and it says it aims to address inequality, tackle corporate greed, and create fairer income taxes. So let's start with the income taxes. The first $10,000 for any New Zealander will be tax-free.
Yes.
And it will effectively come from a new 45% tax rate for those who earn over $160,000.
Yes.
How many people will receive a tax cut, and what might that look like in a pay packet?
96% of the entire population will pay less tax, especially will benefit the people at the lower end of the income. And that's the aim of that, because for far too long, the tax system has been a rort. It has privileged the super rich, while our working people, nurses, tradies, bakers, have had to pay effectively double the tax rate of the super rich on their assets. So this is about making sure that we are putting more income back into the pockets of people earning the least.
As you say, you're relying on the wealthy New Zealanders to pay for this tax cut. You talk about the super rich, but actually someone on a couple of 100,000 living in Auckland, perhaps a doctor, is not the super rich really. 45%, I mean, do you think you've got your settings right?
It's comparable to similar countries overseas. It's lower than some other countries in terms of the top tax rate than some other countries overseas. It's also what we used to have. In fact, we had even above 60% as our top tax rate going sort of between the 1930s to even up to the 1980s. But we all benefit when we can also put that income, that revenue back into our public and critical services that even the rich benefit from, whether it's affordable housing, healthcare, education, our water systems. We all benefit when we can invest that back in. So even those on 180,000, on 200,000, who might pay a little bit extra, will all
they're
benefit.
going to pay 45% extra
only
in their
on
tax, only up and above 160.
Only on the income above 160. So in a weekly amount, they might pay a little bit extra. By the way, we've taxed all politicians to make sure that all MPs pay extra. But what's important here is the income tax is one part of our package. All those above 160k will pay a bit extra, but the benefits for all of us, because the pressure and the stress on our public systems, health, education, etc., is huge, and it is the super rich who we are taxing at a rate that is fair, actually, that will also benefit all of us.
Yeah, I was looking at that because the super rich. The corporate tax you've got is just 33%.
That's right.
Why would an individual be paying 45% when a corporate's only paying 33%? That feels a bit like one lands a bit heavier on the individual.
The 33% tax rate is returning it to what it used to be before National took it back down to 28%, and it is only for large businesses, for $30 million revenue businesses. So it privileges smaller and medium, your local businesses, to pay the lesser tax rate. And once again, the 45% for income tax is comparable to overseas jurisdictions, is still lower than like countries. And once again, it's about benefiting all of us to make sure that that $10,000 tax-free threshold can particularly benefit our lower earners.
So when you're talking about the big companies, and we're talking here about supermarkets and banks,
power companies,
you're still asking them to pay less tax than an individual over 160. So someone's on $300,000, they're at the top of their game, they're a CE, they're paying more money than foodstuff.
Only they're paying, so the corporate
on
tax
income,
is for all of their tax rather than a threshold. Whereas yes we are, I'll own it. Yes, we have introduced a new income tax rate. That's not the biggest part of our story. The biggest part of our story is the 2.5% on assets for an individual above $10 million. The income tax rate, again, is comparable to other countries. And everyone, including those slightly higher earners on 180, 200k, will still benefit from bringing down cost of living and power bills and other areas of their lives as well.
The biggest revenue raiser in the package is actually for the super rich. What are you proposing here? 2.5%. How does that work?
Yeah, so super rich tax, 2.5% per individual on net assets, excluding the family home. On net assets.
And farms?
Excluding farms is for the capital acquisitions tax.
So family homes, PSGEs, that's the post-settlement
government.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And charities.
Yes, absolutely. The super rich tax is because for far too long, our ordinary people have been working sometimes 2-3 jobs, trying their hardest to make ends meet. But the system has been a rort for actually successive governments, where we have put the burden on working people, nurses, tradies, paying effectively double the tax rate of the super rich on their assets. So we need to rebalance that, and we also need to tap into those resources that the super rich have made, from our communities, have benefited from the public services of our communities. We need to rebalance that so that it can go back into the things, the critical services that communities need. We're really proud of being able to take on the super rich and mega corporates.
It will raise 3.7 billion in the first year. Where would you like to redirect that kind of pūtea?
We've got some more election policies to announce throughout the year, but at a high level, why is it that 1 in 7 tamariki and their whānau are living in material hardship, going without housing, kai, heating in their home? There's no excuse and there's no reason for that. For Māori and for Pasifika, it's worse than 1 in 7. I think it's 1 in 3 and 1 in 4. That's not acceptable. For far too long, we have accepted the unacceptable. If anything, every policy decision that we make should prioritise the well-being of all of our mokopuna, rather than just a few. And so that is a sort of policy decision that we are simply able to make. These are just political decisions that can be made.
You also have an inheritance tax. So that's for not the family house.
It excludes the family home and family farms, yes.
And Māori land and treaty settlements. And it's for gifts over $1 million or other properties, obviously. 33% on these. Give us an example of who might be paying this tax if it's brought in.
Yeah, sure. You might get gifted or inherit your family home, which is mortgage free. It might be worth $2 million. That is not taxed. But on top of that family home, you might also get another property and maybe a yacht. We will keep the first $1 million per individual, once again, tax-free. But on above $1 million, on your inheritance gift above $1 million, we will tax that at the 33% rate. Part of the reason is because this current generation are set to pass down completely tax-free over $1 trillion. And that creates a massive chasm and divide, a generational divide between a few families and the rest of the country. And that's not sustainable. It leads to lack of cohesion across our communities. We are not supporting the potential of all of our communities when we've got that sort of inequity among us.
Are you catching the next generation by policy, I guess, those who actually did buy their own homes and have had to work really hard? Say, for example, if you're an Auckland family and you've got a couple of properties because you want the second one or the third one to go to your 2 or 3 children, because as we know, $1 million to get into your first home these days. Living frugal, saving for your kids, is it a bit unfair for that generation?
Remember too that it's $1 million per individual. So if you've got your own family home that you're going to pass down to your kids, we're not even going to touch that. But if you've also got another property that might be worth $2 million, but you've got 3 children to share it across, that still comes underneath the $1 million threshold. I see what you're saying, though. I acknowledge that we had a question about a person who said, I'm worried about my grandchildren, about what I've worked for, and I'm worried about what they are going to be left to inherit. And my response is, as a nana, I completely understand the valid worry for mokopuna. I'm worried for all of our collective mokopuna. Your mokopuna will still be okay. They're going to be okay, but I want all of our mokopuna to be okay.
There's another tax in there, it's called the Big Tech tax.
Yes.
It's an interesting one. The Greens want multinational tech companies, we're talking about Google and Facebook and those ones, Meta, to pay 5% withholding tax on profits shifted offshore through a licence fee arrangement. So Australia's in the middle of this policy currently, proposing just 2.5%, but offers big companies, tech companies, to do a deal with the media, because obviously you know that media are struggling at the moment.
Right.
How will you get that 5% off them?
It's just enforcing what is already law at the moment, which is the 5% withholding tax. It's just enforcing it. I mean, Facebook particularly.
We don't do that now with those big tech companies.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So how will you enforce Google or Meta?
They can't operate here. They can't operate here without paying that tax. So New Zealanders will lose Facebook and lose Insta? No, unlikely. Will Facebook up and leave our shores? Unlikely. It's actually just about having some balls to face the big tech companies who mine us. They mine our creativity. They target our children. They design their technology so that it's incessantly designed to keep scrolling, and in the meantime you've bought 3 things. They target us. They mine our creativity and our information. they should pay some bloody tax. And so it's just about enforcing that 5% withholding tax.
About $280 million you'll make from that 5% if they all pay. Where would you redirect that?
Once again, Aotearoa is more than just a blimmin' tax haven bolt hole for mega corporates and the uber rich. We are creatives, we are warm and beautiful people, our environment, our living systems, our waterways, our forests, our soils are so underfunded to keep healthy. Our, pest control programs. There's so many places where we should be putting that revenue.
I think, people would agree that those big tech companies have mostly hurt news organisations.
Yeah.
Would that be a focus
broadcasting.
of that?
How can I forget?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
When I think the local journalism spend in some of those other countries in terms of public broadcasting, UK spends $125 per capita, Norway $249.
Right.
Do you know how much we spend?
How much?
$13.
Pitiful. Yeah. Look.
Would you look at bringing that back up to par?
Absolutely. And the reason why this is important is because our sort of broadcasting and media platform and the independence of it is critical to a democratic, to healthy communities that have got fair and robust information in front of them. And so my apologies, I should have absolutely acknowledged what has been happening under this government, but actually successive decades of not understanding particularly the beauty of Māori media platforms and Māori broadcasting platforms in particular should have always had more support.
President Trump has actually called this levy a foreign extortion, and we don't have a free trade deal, obviously, with the US, but we do have tariffs. Are you concerned, that might impact the tariffs?
Means that I like a good independent foreign policy when we aren't having to bow down to the likes of Trump or anyone trying to hold us hostage. What is extortion is these big international mega corporations who have been mining our people for their funds, for their knowledge. That's what the real extortion is.
On bottom trawling, the Greens have been strong opponents of bottom trawling for environmental and sustainability reasons, of course. Māori take their role as kaitiaki of fisheries seriously, and at the same time many iwi will be seriously affected if and impacted by any legislation changes. So I guess, what attention will we be giving to those whose fisheries quotas are a treaty settlement?
We've met with Te Ohu Kaimwana, for example, who represent a lot of those iwi voices. I think we go back to our intergenerational kaitiaki responsibilities, particularly as Māori, as iwi. Surely we should be able to say, if we are having to bottom trawl papa moana in a way that is not sustainable, in a way that damages the habitats of our taonga species, kari te tika, kari te pono, that what we want is to work with those very organisations and with iwi to come up with a way where we can sustain ourselves into 7 mokopuna generations. And I want to acknowledge the many other voices of Māori who are really concerned about those are damaging techniques. They just are. And I want to acknowledge the many Māori who are calling that out too.
They are the legal techniques, though, I guess, that that create revenue in fisheries. So would you look at some kind of compensation for breaking basically a promise in a treaty deal? I
would. And I'm saying that, off my own back, and I'm saying that without us having a party policy discussion. But what is absolutely true is that Māori have been forced into these difficult, challenging economic decisions. Another one that is similar, for example, is rights to water bottling by offshore multinational companies. Māori have had our lands taken off us. We have been forced into these really tough economic decisions for trying to rebuild back our economic base, which was taken from us. So I get it. I think that there is another way that we can show the world, and we already are. We can show the world that actually it is our mātauranga Māori, it is our intergenerational responsibility of a different way of doing business that is the key to building real wealth, and that we can show that without having to be pulled into damaging practices.
So it'll take a while for, any kind of kōrero around the compensation to come through. But there are some iwi that actually rely on their fisheries. Your iwi is one, Ngāpuhi, not settled yet. Would you prioritise those iwi?
Oh my gosh. I just, on the issue of settlements more generally, it's always an embarrassing fraction that any settlement has got back from the injustices of the Crown. So actually, we need to take it back to the genesis of the hara, I suppose, which is that none of the settlements really ever give us back our full worth. We know that. All the blood, sweat and tears of our negotiators who have done fantastic work, we still all know that it's pittance. However, we do the best we can with them. It's actually the Crown processes that have gotten in the way of settlements being what they should, and so the Crown needs to bear that accountability.
There is an election in the near future.
I'd forgotten.
What electorates do you think might be winnable for the Greens?
I mean, I can't go past... Look, I've been on the ground with Huhana Linden in the Taitokero. She's got her gumboots in the car at all times. In the crisis moments, she's there on my marae when my Whirinaki Valley got flooded out. She was the first politician there. She's all across the north. But as importantly, she's there for the celebrations as well. So I'm really putting my money on her. She's running a hardcore on-the-ground campaign. She has the respect of her people. She has the relationships of her people. I mean, what else am I going to say? I'm backing her all the way.
Is this the Greens' year for the Māori seats?
We've done the work. We are not a Māori organisation, the Green Party. We are a tiriti party. What that has meant is we have had to do honest work about how to build up our presence in Māori communities, and today we're at a point where we are seeing our own organisation better understand what it takes in Māori electorates. So I'm really proud of that work. There's still work to go, but I'm proud of where we've got to today. We are hoping to have our first Māori electorate win this election.
Te Tai Tokerau, or is there another?
Waiariki, Ikaro Rāwhiti, the incredible Heather Skipworth, who Miss Iron Māori, Queen. These are wahine who have shown that they can build support, they can campaign, they are capable of getting ones across the line.
Are you disappointed with the conflict within Te Pāti Māori? Has it made it harder for the left bloc to form, alliance and allegiance and look credible?
I am the co-leader of the Green Party, and that's really where I save my disappointments and my celebrations for my own party. I do want to acknowledge that across Māori communities and Te Pāti Māori supporters, I do want to acknowledge that some people are airing their disappointment. Look, we will continue to work with Te Pāti Māori. We have for the entire existence. We will continue to work together. I would be sad if we lost their political voice.
Will you still work with any individuals that come through as independents?
Yeah, we do, and we already do talk to the current independents, and while maintaining good relationship with Debbie and Rawiri as well.
Would you consider a coalition or a partnership with New Zealand First?
You know what, Mihi? They've lost the plot. Our party is really, and our supporters are really unlikely to want us to go anywhere near them. What I think I can say to our supporters and to the communities and people out there is we don't need to rely on New Zealand First. The strongest mandate and the strongest influence for the Greens will put us in the best position to be able to get our tax policy over the line, our tile policies over the line, our broadcasting policies over the line. That is where people's focus can be. The more support we have, the more we can ignore parties who have lost the plot.
But what if you do need them? What decision would you do? Would you turn them down and not become the government, or would you work with them to change this government?
I think it is my responsibility to the kaupapa means that it's not about power at any cost. The Greens have always been wary of power, actually, and so we are not seeking power for the sake of power, which is exactly what New Zealand First do. The Greens are about seeking power for the kaupapa, for people and planet. That's the question. Again, it's up to the members in the party. They make those decisions, but I do want to be able to be clear to the voters. We are not about to go into an arrangement with people whose values are completely the opposite from ours, but we will work with anybody who shares our values and our solutions.
Well, tēnā koe, this interview has really been around your tax policy. The Green Party's asking New Zealanders to believe that wealth, inheritance, banks, large corporations, property investors can be taxed more heavily without costs eventually flowing back to ordinary people. With these policies, will these policies genuinely reduce poverty, do you think, improve housing affordability and strengthen public service, or will the costs ultimately be passed back on to the taxpayer, the individual?
We can see that even by cutting taxes for the super rich and corporates, has that done any better for us over, 4 decades? No, it hasn't. That was the theory, is that, if we just cut taxes for the super rich and cut taxes for business, they'll create jobs, the benefits will flow through to the ordinary person. In fact, quite the opposite has happened. It's just 311 families who are taxed at half the effective rate of the ordinary worker. It's a handful of families who own as much wealth as entire half of the whole country. What we can do, though, is yes, tax the wealth, tax the super rich, yes, but we've also got to do the other side, which is invest it back into making sure that people can have affordable power bills and affordable housing and affordable kai. Those are the other sides of the solutions that we will have something more to say down the line, but you can't just do one, you've got to affect the other side as well so that we genuinely can bring prices down for our people.
E te kai ara he takirua o te Pāti Kākāriki, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe mihi.
Ko te reo, te take.